Hi boys, so this is the last subjunctive clause that we're going to meet for GCSE and it's called a fearing clause. It's very straightforward. It uses the same subjunctives that we've already met. In fact, it only uses the imperfect subjunctive and it's set out in a very similar way, just with one exception. And this is the exception. So where a normal clause was contain either ut or nay if it's negative, plus an imperfect or a pluperfect subjunctive, a fearing clause does not use ut, it only uses nay, and nay is not translated negatively. So it's almost like the word ut has become the word nay, but you just translate it as that, rather than not that. And that is the one rule that you have to follow for fearing clauses. So if we look at an example here, timebamos ne urbs nostra caperator. Now, the reason that you know a fearing clause is a fearing clause is because it has a verb that means someone's fearing something. Surprise, surprise. So timebamos means we were afraid or we were fearing. And then you translate nay as that, and it's not going to be translated negatively. So resist the urge to put in a not later. So we were afraid that urbs nostra, our city, caperator, would, the term makes it passive, be captured. Now you might be thinking, right, well, caperator is imperfect subjunctive because it's the infinitive plus the ending. And it is imperfect because the whole fear happened in the past. But a fear, and generally a subjunctive, suggests something that hasn't definitely happened, but has the potential to happen. So that's why instead of translating it as, we were afraid that our city was being captured, we translate it as, it would be captured, because all these weird clauses, like purpose clauses and result clauses and everything, don't describe things that have definitely happened. They describe things which have the potential to happen. So if you're now wondering, right, well, what happens if someone fears that something won't happen? We can create a negative fearing clause, but obviously just putting in nay won't work. So instead, we do this. So for a negative one, very simply, you've got the nay because it's part of the fearing clause, and then you just add in a non. So this is the only situation in Latin where you're going to get a nay followed by a non. It almost feels uncomfortable because it's like a double negative, but remember, when you have a verb of fearing, the nay does not count as a negative. So the translation of this one would be, I was afraid that the guard non auderet would not hear the shouts. Okay, we're now going to take a look at exercise 1019 on page 137. So turn to that in your textbooks. You'll see on that page there's a lot more information on verbs of fearing and fearing clauses. Feel free to read it if you like, but everything you need to know is what I've just said in this video, basically. So let's have a look at that exercise. Okay, boys. So 1019. As always, always have a go at these sentences before you press play to reveal the answer. Just a little heads up, in this exercise, John Taylor has included a couple of sentences that aren't actually fearing clauses. They're just sentences that have the verb I fear in them to show other ways in which you use that verb. The reason that I didn't kind of go into talking about this is that they're dead easy. So if it's not a fearing clause, there's just nothing to worry about. Just translate it like you would translate any normal bog standard sentence. So number one, cives timebant ne urbs ab hostibus caperator. Watch out for the ending of caperator there. Think about that. Pause the video and then press play when you are ready. Okay, so the answer to number one is the citizens were afraid that the city would be captured by the enemy So the ter on the end tells you that it's passive. Remember that the imperfect subjunctive is the infinitive, so here that's capere, plus an ending. If it's active, that ending is mst, mustis, unt. If it's passive, then that ending needs to be ris, ter, mermini, unter. Okay. Number 2, pause the video, press play when you're ready. Okay, so hopefully you didn't start by translating periculum, because although periculum is a neuter noun and could therefore be either nominative or accusative, the verb tells you that periculum is not the nominative here because the verb ends in mus, which means we do something. So periculum isn't the nominative. So we, omnes timemus, we all fear periculum belli, the danger of war. So this is one of those kind of simple sentences I mentioned before. Timemos is used, but it's not a whole massive big clause, so we haven't got ne and we haven't got a subjunctive verb. Okay, number 3. Pause the video, press play when you're ready. Okay, the slave was afraid that invenerator, is another passive verb, ends in ter, so that he would be found by the master. If you said his master, that's fine as well. Okay. Number 4, pause the video, hit play when you are ready. Okay, so number 4, the prisoner was afraid that, and then we've got a non, so this one has become negative. The akiperet, the T on the end, isn't passive, it's just active. So the prisoner was afraid that he would not receive food. Kibble. Number 5, you know the drill. Press play when you're ready. Okay, so this one is another really straightforward sentence. It's not a whole chunky subjunctive clause. Why, times with S on the end, do you fear? Intrare silvam, to enter the wood. So actually thinking about it, why are you afraid? Would be a better translation here. Okay, so that's 10:19. If you are happy with this and you now fancy a challenge, how about having a go at exercise 10:20, some English to Latin. I'm going to do it with you now so you can follow the video. If you don't fancy a challenge, but you still want to kind of consolidate your understanding of these clauses, then still watch what I'm doing here because it will still give you a little recap of how these clauses are formed. Okay, so we're going to have a go at 10:20. Okay, here we go. Exercise 10:20 then, some lovely English to Latin. So starting with number 1, I was afraid, time bam. Okay, that, as we now know, we're going to use ne, the horse, equus, would escape. So we need the imperfect subjunctive. As we've established, there's no pluperfect subjunctive in fearing clauses because grammatically it doesn't make sense. So we need the imperfect because this whole fear was in the past. So the infinitive for escape is effugere. And then the horse is a he or a she or an it. So therefore we need a T on the end. I was afraid that the horse would escape. Okay. If you fancy having a go at number 2 before watching me go through it, then feel free to pause and give yourself a challenge. Okay. So surely you are not. Okay, so we need the word for surely not, which is num. Sorry, I hate it when it does the capital letter thing. So surely not, we've got. You are afraid, so num. Now, is it a you singular or is it a you plural? Well, at the end it says soldiers, so it's a you plural, so it needs to be timetis. So far we've got surely you are not afraid of the enemy's army. Now, when you fear something in Latin, you fear it in the accusative, because as well as this meaning you are afraid of, it could just mean you fear. So we just need the accusative of army, which is exercitum, of the enemy, which is the same thing as the enemy's army. So of the enemy is hostium. So surely you are not afraid of the enemy's army, comma, milites. So that one isn't a full-on fearing clause. It's just using a verb of fearing and then having a direct accusative of the thing that's feared. Okay. Number 3. This one is a fearing clause, so if you want to have a go at this, challenge yourself, go for it. Remember to put in the nay. Okay, so the slaves is servi, were afraid, time bant, that, we need a nay, they would be punished. Okay, so to punish is punire, but we need it to mean they on the end, and we need it to be passive. So what is the passive ending for they? It's unter, so we need to add that in. Okay, number 4. Let's go for it. Right, so the boy is puer. He was afraid. Time bat. By the way, if you want to use the perfect tense, that's fine. You can say timuit as well if you prefer. I've just been using the imperfect because I don't really know why, but it's just happened. So the boy was afraid, and then this one, there isn't a full-on clause. It's not that something would happen. He's just afraid to ask for money. So we'll save the infinitive until the end. So the boy was afraid money, pecuniam, to ask for. So we could use rogare. We could use postulare, to demand. We could use quaerere, quite like that one actually, let's go for that one, to seek. Okay. Number 5, this one is a full-on fearing clause, so captivi were afraid, timebant, that. Now there isn't a that in the English, sorry, I've just automatically put it in there. But if you think about it logically, the prisoners were afraid they would not be heard. I mean, firstly, the word would tells you that there's a subjunctive involved because it's a potential event rather than a definite event. And also, this sentence in English will not change its meaning if you put in the word that. So therefore, it's going to need it in Latin. So the prisoners were afraid that they would not be heard would be the same thing. So captivi timebant ne, they would not be heard. Okay, so we need a non. So ne and non are next to each other, which is a bit strange. So they would not be heard. So to hear, we know is audire, and it's they, and it's passive, so it's unter. Okay, some beautiful little Latin fearing clauses that we've made there. Okay, as always, boys, if you've got any questions, just drop me a message. Well done.